insanity, the last place you'll find any humanity. Life of vanity and selfishness. And the sad part is this is the best it gets. And I can't forget the way you feel till you're back to life. That's a great appeal. Get behind the wheel. I'm a right to drive, saying fuck your life. I just need my high at any cost, at any price. I want it now, wouldn't that be nice? Entire days, entire nights. If I could just have another, then I'll be alright. That's all that matters, that I get some more. If anything else, I just gotta score, so I can't fall asleep. Not just yet, just one more time, then I'll be set. Sounds fairly simple, makes sense until the question comes, where's the consequence? All the time that's lost, the dollars spent, trying to figure out how the fuck to pay my rent. Now I've lost my job.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our first episode of Now That We Have Recovered. Today we have a special guest with us. His name is John W. And we are going to talk about early recovery. And John, would you like to say anything?
Thanks for having me on the show. I'm appreciative to be the first person you got in the studio, and glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks. So, sobriety date?
Sobriety date is let's see, January 28th, 2011.
Okay, so you got a couple drops in the bucket now, huh?
A little bit.
Yeah, you're rolling, dude. How did you get to where you're at now? Could you give us like a brief synopsis of just like your first, say, week getting sober?
Ooh.
Or maybe the last day. How about the last day before you got sober?
The night before?
The night before.
Oh, the night before. Okay. You want like a full... Oh, here we go. Okay, so the night before I got sober, I was living at my sister's house out of her grace. And she was in recovery herself, and she had two simple rules. One was don't steal our stuff, and the other was don't use. And I broke both those rules that night.
She like hit the road.
So that was the last night before sobriety, and it wasn't exactly my choice. I think there was some thoughts of getting sober or clean or whatever you want to call it, but it wasn't until the next morning that actually happened.
Okay. And so when that morning happened, where did you reach out to? Like what was going through your head, and like how did you make calls? Did you find a place to go to? Did you go to those 12-step meetings, rehab?
The day after, I did none of those things. The day after, okay. I was actually, I was arrested the next day. So that is how my sobriety actually started.
The old county jail sobriety,
it wasn't by, like I said, there was some half-assed thoughts, but truly it was through intervention.
Okay.
It was, a couple of counties had teamed up and came to my sister's house and got me sober.
Okay.
So my first 30 days was in county jail.
Okay.
And within there started a journey, but where my father had talked to me and said that he went through a rehab, and that's how he got clean and sober. And so I had considered it because all chips were stacked against me. So I decided I would.
Okay.
So that was kind of the first 30 days of recovery. Basically, for me, it was just sleeping and eating food in a locked environment.
Okay. And quick question I didn't get to. What substances were you using?
All of them, I would say.
Oh, okay. Garbage can?
Absolutely a garbage can, but there's always preferences, which was, let's say that took me down the fastest was methamphetamine.
Okay.
And, but constant from beginning to end, I would say there was alcohol predominant.
Okay.
And so there's a lot to do with that. But, in between that is all kinds of different substances.
Yeah. It's a lot like me too, man. I loved alcohol. I loved methamphetamines. Those are my two, dude. Cocaine in there too.
And one's up or one's downer. So.
Yeah. So you're in jail. You're going to make a change. You spoke with your dad.
Mm-hmm.
What were your next steps when you got out of that jail? Like, what was the next decisions you made?
Next decision. So I decided I was going to go to the rehab, and I'll be honest that there was 3 days in between, and those were rough days because that's when your decision kind of takes hold, and you have to actually hold on to your seat a little bit, if you will. And those were the first good decisions, to not go to anybody's house, not call anyone.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I kind of made this strong decision right then and there. And then I, by that, I don't know, that was a Friday. By that Monday, I was shipped to the rehab.
Okay.
Yeah. So
shipped you off?
Well,
like a van ride or something?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
A nice van ride out to the middle of the country. Yes.
With some some other tweak, recovering tweak or something?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
The awkward drive all the way out there.
Awkward drive all the way out there. Okay.
Yeah.
Was it in Sacramento?
Sacramento was the main location, and then we drove out to the country out in what is it, Wilton, Galt area?
Galt. Okay. Harold.
Okay, that's right.
Okay,
that's right.
I think I went out there too. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually the place that I went to too.
Yeah.
So, when you got out there, what was it like?
First day was rough, I'll be honest. So, because you make these decisions, I think, in early recovery, and you're definitely ambivalent. I would say there was a lot of ambivalence for me where I wanted to kind of change, but I didn't quite want to change. And so, anyways, my first day. You want a full description?
Yeah, why not?
First day, I get off of the van, and they're giving introductions, they're walking you around, and I remember at the time that particular rehab was housed with a lot of parolees.
Yeah.
And so, the first guy that comes to me, he says, "What's up, homeboy? My name's Teardrop."
Okay, I'll tell you about it after that.
And I said, "Oh, okay, right? Like I don't know where I am right now or what I'm doing. I thought I left some of this, But he turned out to be a great guy. But it was a warm welcoming. I was just awkward. I was unsure. I was not quite 100% ready. But the first few days were rough. They were. I felt I isolated myself. I made myself different from a lot of other people, and just tried to adapt to my environment. That was the first week, maybe even.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny you say that because I went to the same place, like I said earlier, and like when I rolled up on the van, I got out, and there's a bunch of parolees out there too, and so I had this guy come up, he's got like 3 teardrops, he's like, "Hey man, you got a cigarette?"
Right.
And this other guy comes behind him, he's like, "Hey, my name's Danger," and he's got like a big star on his head. I'm like,
I love it.
What the heck did Kaiser send me to, man?
Danger.
It changed my life, man. But anyway,
shout out to Danger.
Danger. I hope that guy's doing good.
No, when I was there, I don't know if we can curse or not, but when I was there, there was a guy. It was the best thing I've ever seen, and on his forehead is tattooed "Fuck Police" right across his forehead from left to right. Shout out to Fuck Police.
Fuck the police.
You can edit whatever you want.
Yeah, we're not going to edit that out. Right. We're going to keep that in there.
Perfect.
So you've met Teardrop.
That's not the whole story of a rehab. Just to these were some highlight points. These were some highlight points.
So So when you get in there, do they give you anything like literature or anything like that to?
Yeah. So let's see. So what was I provided? I was provided a big book. I was introduced to a lot of different people. I think a lot of people kind of hovered around me because I was new, and they have classes multiple times a day. Yeah. So there was a lot of curriculum that way. I don't know if it was official curriculum, let's say. I don't know if it was all evidence-based, but a lot of it worked, I'll say that. And so there's a lot of knowledge being pushed to you every day. 3 times a day. You're just gathering education surrounding addiction and how a human interacts with addiction in recovery and how to kind of navigate, let's say, early recovery.
Yeah, and so being in a facility, I know you didn't say this, but I know, but like being in a facility with all men, being used to socializing under the influence and stuff, did you feel a little awkward, a little weird feeling and stuff being out there with like 50-something men and just getting used to life sober?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not everybody, but for me, addiction took me towards isolation in the end. So you don't have a lot of interaction with people. So then, boom, you're slammed into my particular spot had maybe 50 people, 50 men, grown men. And so, there's a lot of anxiety with that. And then there's just weird social cues that you got to kind of figure out along the way, and how to act a little bit again, and conversations that that you should have. Yeah. And, let me think what else on early recovery. And
what was your weight like when you came in?
Oh, yeah, my weight. I was a good 130 pounds.
I know one of the guys out there. I know one of the guys out there, one of the counselors always say, "Oh, I came in hang gliding on a Dorito." Oh. Did you come in like that?
Yeah, absolutely. But I'll be honest, that was one of the selling points, I think, was the food.
Yeah, they had great food out there.
Yeah, great food out there, and it was just a home cooked meal. I think that was really appealing to me, to be honest. To be able to sit and have a home cooked meal, that was nice.
So how long were you out there? So, okay, you've been out there, you're getting curriculum, you're learning how to socialize again, you're eating healthy. How long did you stay out there as a client?
I was out there as a client for 60 days.
Okay. And then after that 60 days, did you go into outpatient or did you go home or?
I did neither of those. I did volunteer work.
Okay.
So I did volunteer work out there for, probably about 6 months.
Okay.
And I would say, again, in that transition, I was pretty ambivalent. I was unsure whether I wanted to stay or go, but the truth is I didn't really have many options. And so they offered that if I volunteer my time, that I can live out there and still get those, warm meals, if you will, and get to help other people too, and all that good stuff. So yeah, I was out there as a volunteer for probably 6 months.
Okay, learning how to be a counselor and stuff like that. Like
there's a lot of components.
Like being a counselor,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. There's a lot of we'll call them junior
counselors. Yeah.
There's a lot of components to it. Yes, and you get to see. And help with a lot of people's crisis, right? You'd call it crisis intervention now, but back then it was just what they were going through, which, what would be a small deal to us is a big deal to them in the moment. And I had plenty of my own while I was a resident, so I was able to help with those. The phone there was their enemy, I'll say that.
Yeah.
And you got to deal with all these outside forces that, can't interact.
Yeah.
Let's say your relationships outside of there, or... Gosh, anything could have been an argument and a blow up. TV, right? TV time. Anything could be an argument.
I remember. So making that change from being a resident to a volunteer, was there adversity that came with that? Like, look at this guy's got a radio. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. So all the people, like you said, there's this awkward transition where you got to build rapport with people again, but without drugs and alcohol. So you got to kind of pick your key players, and then you start to build these friendships, and then all of a sudden, boom! Now you're on the other side of the line. Now you're not here side by side with me. You're across from me, and so I'm trying to help guide them, and they're going, "Aren't you the same idiot who glided in on a Dorito 30 days ago?"
Yeah. Now you're a junior counselor.
Right, now you're a junior counselor. But it was definitely a hard transition. Yes.
I remember for instance, because I did the same volunteer program as well, and my initial thing, it was like my first maybe 2 or 3 days that I had the radio, and I go in and I run into this guy, and the next thing I know, me and this guy are in a shout. You know what I mean? We're in the middle of we're by the office and we're yelling at each other, and then one of the other mentors like, we're writing this guy up, so we start doing this whole write up thing. Yeah. And then the counselor brings me in the next day and he rips it up and he like tells me, your communication skill sucks, and he made me and that dude talk it out and hug, and that was kind of my introduction to junior counseling.
Yeah, I'll be honest. That was my first. That was my first feeling of a power trip. I'll be honest, right? That was for me. I was just telling somebody about this actually, and how these write-ups became like life for me, and it almost became a game, and like I'm missing the whole point of what I was trying to do there. I definitely had those moments too with people.
Yeah, you're right. People, I mean, at that place, you had to have your beds creased in a certain way and everything, man. It was crazy.
Military fold.
So you were a resident, you were a volunteer. What came after that?
After that, I got hired on as staff, so I was actually just driving for them for maybe 6 more months.
Okay.
So I got, so now I'm kind of getting paid and I'm living out there. And so the interactions with the clients changed a little bit again. There was another bit of a transition because now I'm staff. So now I'm here to, they're kind of leaning towards me for some advice and things like that, which is great. And then actually I kind of got a component that I think most counselors didn't get, which is their guard was down. So the whole drive somewhere, their guard is down. We're comfortable. We're just kind of hanging out like this. So I get to hear some of the real stuff going on with them and give real advice. So that helped out a lot too. But while I was doing that, I was trying to find my own job, trying to find my own legs and get out on my own because it had been too long, in my opinion. And so, I put in a lot of applications and none of them stuck. And eventually I leaned towards school and I thought maybe I should go back to school again. I had never completed that, and that was just a different type of journey. And somebody suggested, more or less, that you've been a junior counselor. Why don't you try to become a counselor? So that's where I started journeying, and I went to school, and I I stayed out there for a good 6 months or a year, I'd say, while I finished out school. So I don't know where that would take me, but up to about 18 months to 2 years sober.
Okay. So I'm guessing that you eventually left that place.
Yeah.
So when you did leave, how was that transition coming back into Sacramento? As far as support, like, was that hard to jump into that, or did you already have like a pretty well-rounded support group at that time?
I wouldn't call it well-rounded, but I had made along the way, like I said, you start picking these key players, I think, that you want within your life and recovery. And so a lot of them had already transitioned out, and so they were out in the community, which was good. And so I did have 4 or 5 people that I could lean on. I was lucky, actually, because like I said, my family was very connected, in 12-step and support groups and things like that. And so when I got out of there, I was able to kind of use their support for a moment until I built a bigger one of my own.
Okay.
And so, and then I reconnected with, a lot of those guys that I met along the way.
Okay, cool, man. Your career's still going strong?
Career's still going strong.
And you said you're coming up on, 11 years sober?
So I have 11. In January next year, I will have 12 if, all goes well.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about, man.
Yeah.
So since you've came home, you've built yourself a career. Anything else going on?
With recovery and the transition. So I don't know. I know we were kind of talking about a lot of early recovery. What would you consider early recovery? Whatever. Start till when would you think?
Maybe 3 years.
3 years.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a lot that goes on, I think. And the first year, in my opinion, is definitely the roughest because you got to deal with a lot of your feelings, emotions.
If we asked an old timer, they'd be like, 3? No, that's going to be like 10 years.
10 years,
early recovery. 10
absolutely,
years.
yeah. And
but back to what you were saying.
Yeah, 10 years, and you just shut up until then. So within the 3 years, I think I ran across a lot of hurdles, if you will, things that you have to kind of overcome. There's definitely a lot of social cues and anxiety happened again, I think, for me when I transitioned out. So when you're, living at this rehab forever, you kind of just adapt and that becomes your environment. So when I left again, I had a new environment that I had to interact with. So yes, I have to rebuild a support group, but also there's work. There's a lot of people. I remember at one point they had a Christmas party, and I remember trying to go into this Christmas. I didn't want to go because there's too many people.
Yeah.
And so I went anyway. Somebody was like, "You got to go." So I go in, and I got to deal with this anxiety. And I remember I'm holding the food, but I'm standing in this corner like this awkward kid that I know all these people, but I don't want to talk to them. And then out of nowhere, I just like throw my plate in the garbage, and I just walk out to my car. And pretty soon I'm driving down like Highway 50, before I caught like my full on anxiety. It was like it was that real in the beginning.
Damn, dude.
So you just got to navigate these feelings and kind of get through them slowly. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on. But
so did you leave home, or you just left out of that Christmas party and was just like, I just got to get?
I don't even know where I was going. I was going the wrong direction from home. I'll say that.
I know that feeling. Like people watching me. Am I eating my food the right way? Is my arm hanging to the right, to the left? It's something else, man. That anxiety alerting.
It's all up here.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And so navigating some of that was hard. I definitely had a breakup, and I had. That was a rough thing to go through in early recovery. They don't suggest you be in a relationship within, a year. I mean, it varies per person, of course, in all the scenarios. But for me, I was already in one. And so, up to that point that we broke up, and that was a big, hard void that had to be filled. So now you're not focusing on anyone else. It's all just you. It's all you in your own life, in your own recovery, trying to figure out what you're doing.
How'd you fill the void?
That's a great question. How did I fill the void? I filled it with that support group.
Okay.
I definitely, we started hanging out a lot more. We started going out to, support groups together. We started going out to eat together, movies. And I think that's where a lot of my independence took off, honestly, is from that. It was definitely, very hard at that time. I didn't know what to do. I felt lost, to be honest. But through that, I gained a lot of strength,
Okay.
a lot of independence that, you know, I eventually start, you know, I just go to dinner by myself. I mean, I don't need to, I just go eat some food by myself. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
awkward for me.
Yeah.
And then,
Not for
you
me
know,
either, dude.
right, I'm going
Yeah.
to a movie now. I'm just hanging out by myself. Like, it doesn't have to be anybody. I get to do these things on my own.
Yeah.
You know, I'm working my own job. I'm doing my own recovery. I'm going to my own places. I'm my own man, you
Yeah.
know, and that honestly felt good at that time. I'll say that.
So you're going to the movies by yourself still, or at that
Sometimes.
time?
Sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it varies.
have a friend because I did it too in early recovery, and I had a
Yeah.
friend who's like, "Yeah, you just got to go for your first time. Once you go your first time, you're good." And like that
Right.
dude goes on like pajamas and shit.
Yeah,
now.
yeah, absolutely. You don't have to impress anybody. It's just me.
Yeah.
It's just me
Okay.
in the movie theater. Absolutely.
So you've learned how to fill this void. You're gaining independence. Where were you staying during this time when you first got out?
So when I first got out, I stayed at my sister's house, which again, if we circle back to the beginning of this, that's where I, you know, the journey started. That
Yeah.
I was, you know, taken out of her house and put into custody.
Okay.
So she allowed me back, which was a whole different scenario too. And so, you know, you got to rebuild some trust with that, you know, and I basically spent a good year of my life trying to save while staying there. So I saved a lot of money. I did recovery stuff, and I worked, and that is what I did. I kind of like head down, just stay focused and grind through it, trying to get to my next goal, you know, and goals were really important for me at that point. And so, you know, I bought a vehicle. That was big.
Okay.
And so now I'm kind of cruising around in my own vehicle, and I definitely, you know, turned the music up and windows down. I wanted to let them know I had my own vehicle. You know, that was pretty important.
What were you bumping?
I don't even Tupac. It was old.
Tupac,
It was old. Yeah, but it's like, you know, it's 2000. I don't know what at this point, right?
Picture me rolling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. People are staring at me 2015. They're like, they didn't even know who it was. Yeah. Tupac's the 90s apparently now.
Yeah.
So I got a vehicle. I got into recovery big, and then I saved money and I made the jump. And by that, I made the jump to my own place, and that was a big jump, if you will.
Yeah.
Because let's say, you know, the sister's house, I'm surrounded by people. The rehab before that, I'm surrounded by people. Jail before that, and then whatever.
Yeah.
But you know, so I had to go out on my own, and that was, you know, at about 2 years. That's scary. So the anxiety comes back.
Yeah.
Anxiety comes back. And so anyway, so I got my own place, and I got to fill it in with furniture and everything else at this point, you know, because I'm broke and I spent everything on, you know, this vehicle. And so, so I did get my own place, and, you know, that started to build from there, and that built that confidence as well, I think, that independence.
Yeah.
Right. I'm paying bills. I'm, you know, I'm paying all my bills. I'm working a job. I'm doing recovery. I'm starting to become independent and strong, I think, at that point.
Yeah. And so at that time, you're in your own place. You're living by yourself. Is it hard to go to sleep? Is it feel weird being around the house by yourself?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's awkward. And here's a funny story, too. When I left the rehab, right, because the rehab's got 50 people. So when you shower with shower shoes, right? Because you're not getting athlete's foot.
Yeah.
So,
or anything else.
Yeah,
huh?
yeah, it does, yeah.
Sperm or something
Oh,
like that.
dear God, yes, absolutely.
We won't cut that either.
You don't want to be the one to clean the showers in a rehab. Yeah. So, anyways,
just trying to fill that void.
So when I go to my sister's, I'm taking my first shower, and I look down in the shower, and here's my shower shoes, and I'm at home. You know, I'm thinking, why am I wearing a pair of slides in the shower at my sister's house right now? So just some of those awkward transitions. Yeah, but so when I got my apartment, yes, it was hard. It was awkward. It was quiet is what it was, because everything else was surrounded by people. I mean, and this is the first time it's dead quiet, you know. It's just me in this apartment with very little furniture. You know, there's no pictures on the wall to
like one couch or something.
Yeah, it was the worst couch too. It was definitely a hand-me-down couch, and I could lift it by myself. It was that light and just crummy. It was you know. So I had probably a bed, a couch, and a TV, and I think that's about all I had.
Yeah. Starting over, man.
Yeah, exactly. Starting over, but trying to keep it all that time, you know, and just build my life back again. So yeah, it was quiet, it was awkward, it was hard. I'll say this too, with the apartment and me building strength, one of the hardest things I ever did was sit in that apartment by myself. You know, like a Saturday, no TV, no nothing, just John and silence.
Yeah.
That is a hard thing to do for a lot of us.
Oh, yeah.
And so
I get it.
that once I conquered that, and I squirmed, I'll be honest, I squirmed for a while. I didn't want to, you know, I want anything to distract me from looking at me. So, you know, but that was a big step for me to accomplish some strength as well. I think that was the full independence of me, if you will. I didn't need anybody else anymore. I had control of my life as best as I could.
It's a great feeling, huh?
Yeah, it was absolutely, and it took a while to build that. But yeah.
So, jumping into cravings. So, when do you feel like the cravings and the urges to use started getting easier for you? And all the way up until your apartment, like when you were in that apartment, were you craving too, or were you having any, you know, wanting to use? I just got my new apartment. I could really get high in here, and now that I've got my own place, I can let loose or something like that, and maybe I could keep it. Or did any of that type of stuff, if I'm making any sense, go through your head?
Oh, absolutely, the whole time, yeah. And it was, you know, it was obviously the cycle of cravings was strongest in the beginning.
Okay.
And you said, when did it start to get easier? I don't know. You know, you run thousands of scenarios in your mind, and you have to conquer those scenarios, in my opinion. You have to figure out the reasons why that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
And so, you know, through thousands of cycles, it does start to get easier because you narrow down some of the bigger and easier reasons to go use, and you figure out that that's not a good idea. So I would say it slowed down. It slowed down the first time at about 3 months.
Okay.
Or it came to a head, however you want to call it.
Yeah.
You know, where it had ramped to the point where it was just too much. And I talked about it with some people, and I for me, I prayed at that time, and it kind of dissipated.
Yeah.
And so that was the first conquer. But yeah, it definitely went on, but in smaller gaps.
Okay.
So instead of, you know, every 15 minutes, it was, you know, it turned into every 15 days after, you know, a couple years or whatever. It was just every so often. And then it was, you know, every couple months, it was just something that would cycle in. But yeah, when I had my own place, all of those happened. You know, the first time, you know, I stepped out of that rehab, I had those thoughts, you know. The first time I stepped into the new apartment, I definitely had those thoughts. Nobody would know, and I could get away with it, and what would, you know, I'm doing so well now type of thing. And like, why would it be a problem?
Yeah.
And so that's all the scenarios I had. I felt like my cravings had to be conquered with logic. They, you know, my cravings are illogical, if you will, and I had to conquer them with logic. Like, if I do drink or use, you know, would it be fun? And that's what most of us are looking for. Would I feel better about whatever I'm going through? Yeah. And I'm a realist, so the truth is, in the moment, it'll solve my momentary problem.
Yeah,
but
first night.
Yeah,
for me,
the first night. Yeah. So I have to, like, you know, I have to think past that.
Yeah.
And that's the cycle for me of craving, that it starts with that and it ends at the end of that night. But that's not where it all ends. It actually ends much further down the line. And I had to think, what happens next? How long do I hold my job? Well, I definitely don't, because I'm not, as a counselor, I'm not going to go in under the influence. I just can't do it. I can't look people in the eyes and try to help them in their recovery when I've used. But, you know, there's all that I have to play out. What do I lose after that? You know, where does my money go? What do, you know, am I losing my friendships? Am I starting to separate from people that are, you know, in my life to help me? And I'm a big believer in the carrot and not the stick, right? Okay. So I'm always looking at what are the benefits, and what are the benefits that I've gained that I'm going to lose. That's how I combat my cravings. It's not like, if I use, I'll go to jail. Well, I don't personally care if I go to jail. I never did before. But what I do care about is losing those friendships. I do care about losing that apartment that I worked so hard to get. You know, I do care about losing that car that I got to bump music in, and whatever else. You know, my self-confidence is a big one for me.
And, you know, I feel like that's a blessing that some of us get, and not everybody's allowed to get in recovery. You know, it's like,
that's true.
Everybody gets is that you're able to play that tape through to the end.
Right.
You know what I mean? I know for me, I picture myself in my place with in front of the coffee table with, like, maybe a little tiny bit of meth left, and like one cigarette. I'm getting ready to roll butts. You know, I've just burned through my whole account. All the money I have. I'm probably, I don't know if my car's gone. It's probably going to.
Sure.
It probably is.
Right.
But I like do that last line, and I'm just like, oh my God, you know. And you get that feeling inside of you, that emotion, like, oh, it's fucking over, dude. You know what I mean? I did it again. And for me, when I was at rehab, the first 30 days, I kept thinking about, okay, when I go on pass, I think I might go do some blow, and then I might bring some back. It's just blow, you know what I mean? And somewhere around 3-4 months like that, same thing like you. You know, it started going away. It started dissipating a little bit, and I think you were spot on. You know what I mean? It goes from 15 minutes to 15 days, and then it gets easier and easier and easier, and that's great, man. That's a great blessing that we get in recovery to be able to play that tape through.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't get that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they can't see the benefit of it, or they can't see past that night.
Would it be fun? It's going to be fun for that first night. I guarantee it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Of course.
Unless it's like that time I got hit in the head with the high heel.
With the what?
True story.
Oh,
I tried to get
let's hear
clean
it.
for a little bit. I go out. Probably had 45 days sober. I end up on a party bus with my friend and a bunch of chicks, and somehow one of the chicks didn't like that I was hitting on her girlfriend, and next thing I know, I'm getting hit with the high heel. and this little Mexican girl,
Okay.
you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, is that God? You know, like wake up, you know? And it took me a while before I got sober after that. But
Right.
yeah, tons of instances like that where I feel like God came and just slapped me upside the head. You know what I mean?
Well, it wasn't God. It was a Hispanic with a with a stiletto. But yeah, he was. She was his. Her.
Her. I was just having a friendly conversation too, man. You know? So, yeah. So, what time? I mean, I don't know how much time we got left. But is there anything you'd like to add to this?
For early recovery?
Yeah, for early recovery?
A support group is key. And in my belief, it is not... Family's great. They're a great support. There's nothing wrong with family. And there's nothing wrong with a partner, let's say, as support. These are great. But what I believe somebody needs in early recovery is more than that, which is an outside person from all of that they can talk to, because the family might be the problem, the spouse might be the problem, and I can't talk to them about that. So I need somebody that's separated from it all to be able to vent about what's going on. You know, I think that's a really important key piece. And I believe that it's important for somebody in early recovery to keep building that support, which means I grabbed about 20 people, the strongest I could. And then the reality is that some of these people move away, they get jobs, they drift off. And so you have to rebuild that.
Yeah.
So just because you grabbed, 20 people in your support in early recovery doesn't mean you have to keep building.
Yeah.
Building over and over is a part of it if you want to sustain yourself. Support is a huge key piece to this whole thing.
Okay. And one thing that I was thinking about when you said that is I had people in early recovery that I thought would be friends for the rest of my life.
Right.
And a lot of them were out using and getting high. They didn't make it.
Right.
You know, so it is important to keep building new relationships throughout this process.
Yeah.
Some of those guys, I thought this kid is going to be my friend for the rest of my life. We're working out every day. We've taught very intimately with each other. You know what I mean? And I don't know where that guy's at anymore.
Right. And they may circle back around, but we are the ones who have to survive and keep building our own support group to stay where we want to stay. Yeah.
Well, thanks, John, man. I appreciate you coming out here and talking with us, dude. It's been a pleasure, man. Maybe I can get you by here another time. You can interview me or something like that.
Yeah, we're going to flip the script. We're going to interview you. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll give you all the juicy gossip and all the good details. And thanks, man. I appreciate it, dude.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Have a good night.
All right.